All right. Let me see if I beat the clock here. Let me see if I beat the clock. Hopefully, this is going to work here. Let's find out. Let me see if this is back. Don't, hope you didn't go away too for long. Let me see here. It should be coming back on. Please come back. You're kidding me. Okay. Rumble is back. Let me check. God damn it. This is really fucking irritating. I'll drop you the link. This is really angering me. Is it on? This is really angering me. All right, there we go. So, I don't know what's going on with Streamlabs. They didn't do this to me yesterday, but we've been having problems with it. So, we'll try to figure this out. YouTube started doing it. Yes, I see that. That's where I put the link. I'm just making sure everyone has the link there. This is very annoying. So, I don't know why this keeps doing this to me. It didn't do it yesterday. I reset the entire stream. And, what a pain in the ass. So, looks like you guys are coming back here. Why is there a... Oh, I didn't set up a weekly donation today. All right. All right. Well, this is what we do. I'm assuming Rumble's still going, right? All right. Sorry, guys. Let me fix my chat here so I can see the new YouTube chat. Oh, this is really a pain in my behind. I am going to be obviously sending the information to Streamlabs and seeing what's going on here. I have no idea. So it is a new stream, as far as I can tell. All right, let's get into this. I want to go back and watch this video.
We'll see what it do.
Hang on. Strong Dad. Let's see if this even works. I hope it does. Hang on. Gosh, they've done this, messed up everything. All right, let me make sure that I can see these guys. There it is. There it is. All right, so back to Strong Dad Saturday. We're gonna Strong Dad June. Let's see if this goes. There it is. All right, here we go. Here's the video we were just about to watch. Now that you all are back, hello, those ain't real, dude, and Annalyn. No, they didn't get me. There's a problem with Streamlabs, and it keeps locking itself out, and that's the biggest thing. So anyway, let's watch this video.
Come on, man. You got his first check.
First check. Let's
first
learn.
Check ever in life, boy.
All
Let's
right.
see what it do. Hey, wait. Gotta say how much it is, man.
First check from
First
first
we open
job.
it up, man. Wait, Jojo. How's it feel opening up this first check, man?
Oh, come on, Pop. Let's just open it up.
All right, man. All right.
Here we go. Let's see what happens.
What is this? You need this.
You really don't.
Oh, wait. Whoa, what? What?
Because he was expecting
What's he
Why you
doing?
feel like that, JoJo?
It's probably the taxes. It's probably taxes.
Would you expect it more?
Because you're 18.
JoJo, would you
So
expect
sorry.
it more?
How much you get? I got to say it out.
JoJo, where you going?
How much did y'all get? Oh, yeah, they took out taxes, Joe. Welcome to the world.
What? JoJo. Where you going,
Aw,
man?
It's a
what?
part of life.
Ooh, you mad?
Yeah, they took out the taxes right here. So,
You don't know how the taxes hit, boy. JoJo, where he going?
yeah, because they,
Where he
where
at?
they go?
Look, where he
I'm
going?
gonna show them how to.
They're going to ask him. What are they
They
What
didn't
they
finesse
do?
you. They didn't finesse you.
No.
It's not a stipend, it's a check.
What you wait? What you talking
You
about?
only got 258.
Joe, look.
Yeah, you gotta explain taxes.
Okay. So they took out employee Medicare and they took out your Social Security employment. So that's 406.
But I got
and
my
that's
social security number.
No, you always have to pay taxes. You have to pay taxes every time you
It's only $20.
So-
Oh my gosh.
So look.
Listen, we gotta explain to you how this
Look,
works, man.
you earned $280, but they still had to take out $21.42 in taxes, which is why you have this much to spend.
So if I earned that, why can't I get it?
Because you have to take
pay
out
taxes.
federal taxes.
You pay taxes for everything, JoJo.
You lucky you don't state taxes.
Listen,
on it.
There
listen,
you go.
They take out federal tax, state tax, all this, man.
It's a state tax.
This is-
Sometimes it's a
you
county
can-
tax.
All right, so let's just say welcome to the world, JoJo. Welcome to the world, buddy. All right, that's cute. All right, let's see. How many made it back? Did y'all making it back? Looks like okay, 25 made it back. We're good. We're good. I'm glad you found the new stream. Hopefully if it does it again, I just reopen the stream and sometimes it'll go back into YouTube, sometimes it won't. I'm trying to do that. So anyway, and I just realized when I restarted it before, I didn't, I have to make so many little clicks to try to beat the dead stream. So if anyone wants to restart, there we go. Thank you, Somnambule Nation, for the restart. I just retweeted you. All right. That has me a little discombobulated. All right, let's move on. Let's talk about a few things that are trending. One thing that's trending on Twitter, and this is kind of funny because no one knows what old Joe is doing here, but the president of the United States, Sundowner Joe, was having a little trouble on MSNBC. He did a little interview, and let's just watch what happens here, because I think he kind of, well, no one's quite 100% sure, but here's the video. Oh, oops, excuse me. Here we had a little burp there. Hi, K-Shaw, what's up? All right,
well, and the ones that didn't vote for your bills but run on them.
That's right.
Mr. President, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Now,
It's great to
we're
have
not
you.
really sure why he's getting up.
Don't go anywhere. It's a very exciting day
Wait,
around
what,
here.
Joe, where you
We'll
going?
have reaction
Joe,
and analysis
wait.
to everything we just heard.
What the hell did you just do, Joe? Joe just wanders off. Now, granted, the segment may have been over, but most of the time, don't they stand around and talk or wait till the segment's completely over and they go to a break before the person walks off and leaves the set? So anyway, a lot of people make fun of Joe for that. Let's see what else we got here before we get into this whole affirmative action thing. By the way, so let's see. President Biden Thursday wandered off the set. Live television interview on MSNBC before the show even cut to a commercial break. With the camera still rolling, Biden got out of his chair, shook hands with co-host Nicole Wallace, and awkwardly walked away after she thanked the 80-year-old president for granting her a rare interview. I'm just curious of the whole interview. I think in the link that I'll have for the New York Post article for this, I think it has the entire interview. Yes, it has all 19 minutes of the interview. I'm curious. I haven't watched it, so I don't really know what to say about it. But and then also trending on Twitter. Well, let's just the big things that are trending. Ketanji Brown Jackson Clarence Thomas, and a whole bunch of things, all related to the Supreme Court ruling on affirmative action, and based on lawsuits by some Asian students who did not get into Harvard and the University of North Carolina, and so there was a Supreme Court case that went all the way to the Supreme Court, basically on affirmative action in admissions to, I don't know, is Harvard even a public university? Harvard's I don't know if it is or not. Anyway, into universities, okay? And basically the Supreme Court ruled that those admission practices were in violation of the 14th Amendment. And there were some interesting, very interesting opinions going around about these admissions. Okay, so let's start with the news articles first. So let's go to Breitbart, obviously right of center news outlet. Supreme Court, racial preferences unconstitutional in college admissions. Racial preferences in college admissions violate the Equal Protection Clause of the Constitution. The Supreme Court decided Thursday in a historic decision with profound implications for racial preferences in many areas of law and public policy. The Supreme Court held racial preferences, euphemistically called affirmative action, in college admissions in the Bakke decision in 1978, or upheld racial preferences then. Since then, debates have raged about whether to use quotas, point systems, or other ways of favoring one applicant over another based on the color of their skin, with the Supreme Court upholding some approaches while trimming the sails on others. Conservatives have insisted for half a century that the Constitution does not allow for any of those approaches. The Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment commands that no state shall, quote, deny any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. The Supreme Court has always acknowledged that the central promise of the Equal Protection Clause is to forbid laws and public policies that discriminate on the basis of race. While the 14th Amendment applies only to state governments, which includes state and local public universities, Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 also extends racial discrimination in institutions that accept federal tax money, such as in grants and tuition aids, so that applies to almost every private university. Students for fair admission filed a number of lawsuits against the public and private schools. The Supreme Court eventually took two of them, a challenge to the admission policies at the University of North Carolina under the 14th Amendment and a challenge to Harvard's policy under Title VI. The Supreme Court held 6-3, those conservative bastards, 6-3 that University of North Carolina's policy is unconstitutional, and held the same regarding Harvard's policy by a 6-2 vote. Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson recused herself from the Harvard case, I believe because she went to Harvard, which is amazing to me. Chief Justice John Roberts wrote the majority opinion, joined by all of the conservative and moderate justices. Now, it's interesting how Breitbart calls them the conservative and moderate justices. Interesting, because most of the, the left, they're all a bunch of conservative Republican hacks, judges, whatever. Anyway, the majority opinion declared that the Harvard and UNC admissions program cannot be reconciled with the guarantees of the Equal Protection Clause. It concludes, quote, the Constitution deals with substance, not shadows, and the prohibition against racial discrimination is leveled at the thing, not the name. A benefit to a student who overcame racial discrimination, for example, must be tied to that student's courage and determination, or a benefit to a student whose heritage or culture motivated him or her to assume a leadership role or attain a particular goal must be tied to that student's unique ability to contribute to their university. In other words, the student must be treated based on his or her experiences as an individual, not on the basis of race. Now, what's interesting is that the way they wrote that, it still gives an opening to some of these universities, and we'll get into that soon. Now, Justice Claire Thomas many universities have for far too long done just the opposite, and in doing so, they have concluded wrongly that the touchstone of an individual's identity is not challenges bested, suits, skills built, or lessons learned, but the color of their skin. Our constitutional history does not tolerate this choice. So they're saying it's got to be, these choices got to be based on what the individual has overcome, not just because they happen to have a little more melanin than the white kid next to them. Now it's interesting too, because these suits were brought more on behalf of Asian students. These weren't brought by white kids. These were brought by Asian students, because Asian students, they were so worried that, well, Asian students are overrepresented at Harvard. There's too many smart Asian kids. We can't all have these smart Asian kids. We got to have some other kids in here. Now, Justice Clarence Thomas joined Roberts' opinion in full, but also wrote separately to highlight the constitutional principle at stake. In the wake of the Civil War, the country focused its attention on restoring the Union and establishing the legal status of newly freed slaves. The Constitution was amended to abolish slavery and proclaim that all persons born in the United States are citizens, entitled to the privileges or immunities of citizenship and the equal protection of the laws. Because of the second founding, our Constitution is colorblind and neither knows nor tolerates classes among citizens. So, there's a whole lot of talk going on this. Let me get real quick, though. Thank you, Black Hebrews Light. First sponsor of the day, which means
you are
the new Streamlabs Superstar sponsor of the day. Thank you, Black Hebrew Israelite.
That's right.
So, thanks for dropping a small bullet in the tip jar. By the way, if you want to sponsor the show, Streamlabs, YouTube Super Chats, Rumble Rants, and all that other stuff in the description. Black Hebrew Israelite says, the Supreme Court ended the systemic racism in college admissions. This mostly benefited white women who pretend to be Indian or Mexican. He's talking to you, Elizabeth Warren. Anyway, during the Bush administration, the court said they would revisit this issue in the future. Now here we are. That's right.
That's right.
All right. So thank you. So let's move on, because now let's talk about one of the dissents, and that's the reason Justice Ketanji Jackson Brown. No, is it Brown Jackson? Jackson Brown. It's not running low, running on empty. Not Jackson Brown. It's Brown Jackson. Because her dissent has her trending, and it's what's interesting when I read her dissent. Where is that? Here we go. She's trending because of her dissent. And here's an interesting thing as I read this. And tell me if you can tell me what's missing in her dissent. Okay? Here's how it goes. Let's see. Oh no, that's Thomas. Let's go with Ketanji Brown Jackson first. In her dissent, here's some of the language she uses. The majority and concurring opinion rehearsed this court's idealistic vision of racial equality from Brown forward, with the appropriate lament for past indiscretions. But the race-linked gaps that the law, aided by this court, previously founded and fostered, which indisputably define our present reality, are strangely absent and do not seem to matter. With let them eat cake obliviousness, today the majority pulls the ripcord and announces colorblindness for all by legal fiat, but deeming race irrelevant in law does not make it so in life. And having so detached itself from this country's actual past and present experience, the court has now been lured into interfering with the crucial work that UNC and other institutions of higher learning are doing to solve America's real-world problems. No one benefits from ignorance. Although formal race-linked legal barriers are gone, race still matters to the lived experiences of all Americans in innumerable ways, and today's ruling makes things worse, not better. The best that can be said of the majority's perspective is that it proceeds ostrich-like from the hope that preventing consideration of race and racism, but if that is its motivation, the majority proceeds in vain. If the colleges of this country are required to ignore a thing that matters, it will not just go away. It will take longer for racism to leave us, and ultimately ignoring race just makes it matter more. So, hello, Amazing Disgrace. Welcome to the show. These are limbo mental gymnastics that we have to deal with. Yes. Okay, so Rick Ashberger, how you doing? And Natasha Kayleen, what's up, my friend? So when I read that, what's missing as I look at what she wrote? What is missing? Because it's interesting that, Ketanji Brown Jackson, one of the criticisms of her is that she clearly was an affirmative action placement on the court by Joe Biden, who made it clear when he was running for president that he would absolutely appoint a black woman, and he did, but that's not neither here nor there if Ketanji Brown Jackson would be using sound legal reasoning. But as I read this little section that a lot of people have highlighted of what she wrote, I think to myself, okay, that sounds fluffy and full and, happy-go-lucky, we need to do things better for people or whatever. But there's something missing. And, Will, you got it. There's no constitution in what she wrote. She's writing like a lawmaker, not like a judge who is determining the law based on the Constitution. She's sounding like she wants to write legislation from the bench, and that's not what we're doing here. And so, and then there's other problems with it, but people are just dragging her. So then we get to Clarence Thomas, who seems to reply to her in one of his response to her. And so here we go. Here's Clarence Thomas's reply. And it's, obviously they're working on these in simultaneously, so they're not necessarily reply, but many of the arguments that Ketanji Brown Jackson was making during the arguments or questions she was asking. So here's Clarence Thomas' reply. Yet Justice Jackson would replace the second founder's vision with an organizing principle based on race. In fact, on her view, almost all of Light's outcomes may be hesitantly ascribed to race. This is so, she writes, because of statistical disparities among different racial groups. Even if some whites have a lower household net worth than some blacks, what matters to Justice Jackson is that the average white household has more wealth than the average black household. This lore is not and never has been true. Even in the segregated South where I grew up, individuals were not the sum of their skin color. Then, as now, not all disparities are based on race. Not all people are racist. Not all differences between individuals are ascribable to race. Put simply, the fate of abstract categories of wealth statistics is not the same as the fate of a given set of flesh and blood human beings. Thomas Sowell, Wealth, Poverty, Politics. He quotes Thomas Sowell. Worse still, Justice Jackson uses her broad observations about statistical relationships between race and select measures of health, wealth, and well-being to label all blacks as victims. Right? Her desire to do so is unfathomable to me. I cannot deny the great accomplishments of black Americans, including those who succeeded despite long odds. I'm sorry, just had to click the page there. Nor did Justice Jackson's statistics regarding a correlation between levels of wealth, health, and well-being between selected racial groups prove anything. Of course, none of these statistics are capable of drawing a direct causal link between race rather than socioeconomic status or any other factor and individual outcomes. So, Justice Jackson supplies the link herself. The legacy of slavery and the nature of inherited wealth. This, she claims, locks blacks into a seemingly perpetual inferior caste. Such a view is irrational. It is an insult to individual achievement and cancerous to young minds seeking to push through barriers rather than consign themselves to permanent victimhood. If an applicant has less financial means because of generational inheritance or otherwise, then surely a university may take that into account. If an applicant has medical struggles or a family member with medical concerns, a university may consider that too. What it cannot do is use the applicant's skin color as a heuristic, assuming that because the applicant checks the box for black, he can therefore conform to the university's monolithic and reductionist view of an abstract average black person. Now, this ties in to a little bit what I was saying earlier. Who is this? Because someone's saying, there are people out there saying, well, this is going to hurt black people. Well, wait a minute. How is this going to hurt black people? What black people is going to hurt? Like I said, it's like, oh, is this decision by Harvard? Let's say that Harvard doesn't take their skin color into account. Does this legal decision from the Supreme Court, who's it going to hurt? Is it going to hurt the kid who's choosing between Harvard and Michigan State? Is it going to, remember back, oh man, back at the University of Missouri, there was a student uproar, right? And there was a kid there that, a black student who was part of a protest, and one of the professors there, I can't remember her name, but there was this big hubbub there, and it was because this black student who was protesting something, and he was blocking a car, and apparently the car was standing still, but he bumped himself against the car and claimed that the car hit him. And so there's this big protest on campus, and he was there protesting, racial discrimination and whatever. And we come to find out that, in fact, this kid grew up in the same neighborhood that our veterinarian bought the first house in Omaha in, a very wealthy new neighborhood called Regency, the Regency neighborhood. And he grew up, yes, the rich kid who walked into the car, exactly. And he's complaining about being discriminated against, and he's going to the University of Missouri when his father was a CEO of some big company, and but he can use the color of his skin to gain advantage under the old system. Well, he wouldn't be able to do it under the system. He would have to take his privileged ass and actually do something to gain his privilege. Now, granted, he went to the University of Missouri, which is a good, fine school. I don't know what he was studying there, but he did have to, he under affirmative action, he may have gotten into Harvard just because he's black, and he's not overcoming anything. He grew up in a very, very pampered life. So not every black person, just because of the color of their skin, is, necessarily needing of this thing. But you know what? Here's what the colleges do. And when I was talking about how these diversity, equity, and inclusion programs work, okay? All these companies are trying to fill their boards and fill their boardrooms with, diversity. Say they want to check the box that they have a black person on the board, and they want to check the box that they have women on the board, or whatever. The problem is there are more companies than there are people to fill those boardroom slots. So what do? Are they going down into the hood and finding some guy who, maybe works in the auto repair shop to fill out the place in their board of directors? No. They're all competing for the same high-end black folk or women or, whatever box they're trying to check off. So a lot of these people who are on these boards of directors end up on several boards of directors because the numbers are thin. Now, the reason I have a problem with this whole kind of system, and that includes the affirmative action for kids trying to get into Harvard. The pool of kids for getting to Harvard, period, is small. But if you're trying to target minorities, right, you're going to target a lot of very privileged kids just to have that skin color in your school. You're not, and you're not searching the schools in Baltimore or in St. Paul, Minnesota, or Oakland. Okay, you're not searching those schools. You're going to go to some prep school that just happens to have a couple of black kids in it, and you're going to look for those prep school kids. So all you're doing is fulfilling a superficial need as far as your diversity, your diversity goals. What I really think is the problem is the activists, whether they're talking about the Ivy League schools, whether they're talking about high-end universities, whether they're talking about the CEO or the boardrooms or whatever of all these places, or even, you're trying to get more black people in tech, or you're trying to get more people in this career. You're starting at the very wrong end of the spectrum. You're starting trying to fill the top part, when the problem is you're not starting where you can actually increase the pool for that diversity. Now, here's what I mean. There are failing schools in Baltimore. There are failing schools in St. Paul, Minnesota. There are failing schools in Oakland, California, San Francisco, Los Angeles, wherever. All these big, Houston, whatever. There's schools in many of these cities, and in particularly low-income areas, which have a higher concentration of minorities, right? Where you'll find an entire grade level or an entire school when they go to take some of these standardized tests. Standardized tests are not the be-all, end-all, but let me make my point here. You have entire school districts where not a single kid reads at grade level, or an entire school district where not a single kid is proficient at math. Now, if you have an entire school district or several schools within a school district where not a single kid is proficient at math, there's no way you're going to fill a pool of people who want to go to Harvard or want to end up being in the boardroom at a major company. You've lost those kids completely. You're starting at the wrong end. If you want to increase diversity in universities, if you want to increase diversity in tech, if you want to increase diversity in high-end jobs, you can't start at the point where people are applying for admission. You cannot start where people are putting in job applications. You cannot start at the point where you're trying to find people for your boardroom. You got to start all the way at the beginning. You got to start all the way at the beginning at the level of kids going into school. You got to start all the way at the beginning and making it known to kids who think, well, why do I need to do school? I'm not going to amount to anything. They've already told me that the world's stacked against me and I can't, doesn't matter what I do, I'm not going to be able to be any better than I am now. Well, you got to change that attitude. There's a lot of people out here. Look, and again, let me remind you, 80% of black people are middle class or higher. So there are there are plenty of us out there, but we're only a small percentage of the country. We're 13% of the country. And unfortunately, is a demographic, which you can't even, first of all, even by judging people by a demographic, maybe that's part of the problem, right? Because a lot of people who think, well, we need this for action, black people aren't going to go anywhere. Because there are actually people who think just like that. Oops, that's the wrong one. That thumbnail. I forgot the thumbnail changed. Let me fix that thumbnail. I forgot that this thing completely resets on me. It messes up. There we go. Let's try that. No, that ain't it. What the hell? What the hell happened here? There we go. Let's try that. There are people who think like this. Okay, they may not say it explicitly like that, and they may not think it as intensely as that is written. Okay, but it's part of their thought process that if we don't do this, we'll never be able to find people who can succeed in that. They think of the whole demographic that way. It's kind of like, when we talk about people needing IDs to vote, right? They say, what's the Democrats and people who are against that say? Well, you can't do that because, not all black people can't get driver's license. What are you talking about? You ask black people, do they have a ID or a driver's license? They're like, yeah, we have an ID. You can't do anything without an ID. You can't buy liquor. You can't buy cigarettes. You can't, you can't cash a check. You can't get a bank account. You can't do anything without an ID. Of course you have to have ID. But for some reason, when you bring that up, there is such a low expectation of black people by some people who think they're trying to help that they're saying, well, no, that's discriminatory. Are you serious? Are you serious? Pat, hi Pat, how you doing? Nice to see you. Did I see who backpedal? Who was backpedal? Oh, that girl. Well, here's the thing. I don't think she backpedaled. I think she's fake. I don't think that's real. It's a troll, and even her backpedaling was a troll, I think. I don't know. Let me see. Let's go find Erica Marsh. So here's what Erica Marsh did later, because she said, let me clarify this tweet. But I still don't think this is real. Here's her clarification. She says, allow me to clarify this tweet, which is being manipulated for propaganda and misinformation by Ultra Mega. The intention of my tweet is to highlight that prior affirmative action, there existed a supposedly merit-based system for black individuals to gain admission to colleges. However, these institutions employed racial profiling to prevent black individuals from attending under the guise of this merit system. I want to emphasize that my statement in no way suggests that black individuals are less intelligent than people of other races. Well, here's the problem with that. At least, now again, this is anecdotal in my experience, whatever. Hello, selected boy, by the way.
Yeah, boy.
Here's my problem with that. My own lived experience, because y'all love to hear about lived experiences, right, Erica? Y'all like to talk about people's lived experiences. My own lived experience tells me otherwise. Again, the most prominent veterinarian in Omaha when I was growing up was a black man who went to my church. One of his prominent people who also worked in his office, black woman, lived in Omaha. My dentist was a black man. We went to a black barber. He made a lot of money cutting hair. My grandmother was a professor at Creighton University in the summers and taught in schools, had a master's degree. My grandmother, we're talking, she was born in 1907. Had a master's degree. My other grandmother, my dad's side, was the jewelry buyer for Yonkers, a department store in, where she lived. And it worked there for 50 years. The idea that people would not be, both my parents had master's degrees. My dad was the first person black man to graduate from Wayne State University out in Wayne, Nebraska. It was Wayne State Teachers College at the time. The idea that, that the people weren't being successful. There were black doctors, there were black magazine owners. One of the wealthiest men in America was black. The first female millionaire was a black woman. I mean, in the United States, it's like, look, yes, there was discrimination, but the idea that affirmative action made things better. Affirmative action mostly benefited white women. When it came out, the idea of affirmative action, we got to put the women and minorities in there. Well, they put a lot of women in there, not necessarily a lot of minorities. But even then, there are all kinds of successful black people. And again, you're starting at the wrong end when you do affirmative action. You have to wait till college admissions to apply this race-based help, you're too late. You're too late. It should have happened when they got into kindergarten. And if it means bringing in, because again, 80%, you don't have to. And look, you don't have to bring in Barack Obama. Okay, we've had a black president. Was that affirmative action, by the way? I'm not sure. I think he got there because the Democrats wanted him to be there. But you don't need to bring in a CEO to your kid's school. You don't need to bring in, you don't have to bring in anything. You can bring in the veterinarian to go to the school, or a guy who builds things in the school, and just let kids know that, hey, there's no reason for you to be here. Anyone who did better because they did well in school and they're living a decent life should be the role models. But we try to make the role models the multimillionaires, the Jay-Z's and the Oprah Winfrey's and whatnot. Well, not everyone's going to be that, but you know what? I bet there's a cameraman who works on Oprah Winfrey's set that some kid can aspire to be. But you're telling them, oh, nope, white man's going to hold you down. If we don't force them to hire you, they're never going to hire you. What are you talking about? Anyway, let's get into some of the other opinions regarding this that we have on the web, and then I'm going to get out of here. So this is an interesting article in the Federalist about Ketanji Brown Jackson's dissent. And what they say is that her dissent is an argument for institutional racism, not against it. Okay? Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson hardly feigned interest in adjudicating the constitutionality of affirmative action in her dissent today, which is what was missing, as we said before. That was what was missing. Instead, Jackson offered more than 9,000 overwrought words of leftist social commentary, expounding upon the universal benefits of considering race in this context, end quote. Her embrace of identitarianism and defense of Asian American discrimination is jarring. Jackson believes state-funded institutions should judge Americans by their immutable characteristics and historical sins rather than their individual accomplishments and actions. It's really that simple. And then they go through what we've already read. With the Let Them Eat Cake, oblivious to today, the majority pulls the ripcord and announces colorblindness for all by legal fiat, Jackson sarcastically noted. I don't know. Colorblindness seems like a worthy ambition. Look, I don't know. I slightly disagree with that. I don't care about colorblindness, but I do care about color irrelevance. Okay? If your first, we need to get to a point where color irrelevance versus colorblindness, because it's impossible to not see people, but you certainly can, it's kind of the cliche now, but not the color of skin, but content of character. And that's why they did kind of give them an opening, which we'll get to in a second. But anyway, the Supreme Court didn't institute color blindness for all. It could no more do that than stop justice from mixing their metaphors. What it did though was reaffirm color blindness as a matter of law. On this topic, the 14th Amendment and Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 is clear. No person in the United States shall, on the grounds of race, color, or national origin, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. Now, clearly, many Asian students, by having their applications downgraded strictly for being Asian, this was being violated. The Civil Rights Act does not make exceptions for disadvantaged groups, lived experiences, or race. Quite the opposite. Using Jackson's logic, any institution could adopt any racial preferences they wanted. Ding. Here, ding. As long as there was some emotional argument for it. Though, in fairness, there isn't much logic to be had in progressive Calvin law. Moreover, Jackson surely knows the Supreme Court exists to use legal fiat to uphold the Constitution. Every opinion that Jackson has been on the majority has used this approach. Jackson argues that government-funded policies that are prejudiced against white and Asian kids, all of them, no matter how hard they work or what their backgrounds might be, are not only legally necessary, or legal, but necessary. What she fails to concede is that for every instance of affirmative race-based admission to a college, there is a corresponding insistence of race-based discrimination. And again, we'll take the kid from the University of Missouri who grew up in Omaha. His dad's a CEO of a big company, grew up very wealthy. I think the family had a net worth of $50 million. Are you going to admit him to a school ahead of a kid who maybe had equal grades, but maybe grew up in in the foothills of Appalachia, barefoot, just because he's black? I don't know. No, you don't do that. You if a kid's overcome something and still become, you're probably gonna go for the less privileged kid. Although I'm not even sure that that's necessary. Breaking. SCOTUS struck down student loan forgiveness. And Christian-run businesses are not obligated to provide service to the LGBT. Oh, Lord Almighty. The floodgates of salt is going to open today. Thank you, Lindsay. Nice to see you, by the way, Lindsay. Haven't seen you for a while. So anyway, instead of wrestling with this reality, Jackson creates two hypothetical straw students, John and James. One is white and one black. Never once does she imagine that a white kid from, say, rural West Virginia might have overcome more societal barriers than a black kid from a middle-class suburb in Los Angeles. In her worldview, a black kid can't overcome barriers without lowering of standards. That is what is extraordinarily corrosive and demeaning a position to take, and it has nothing to do with the law. Again, she didn't make legal arguments in her dissent. She made emotional arguments, and whether or not they follow the Constitution. She did not do that. She didn't even attempt to do that. That's what the annoying thing about her dissent is. The hypothetical couple in James' dissent should be, or the hypothetical couple in James Jackson's dissent should be James, the son of immigrants from India or Vietnam. Many Asians come to the United States from crushing generational poverty and racist caste systems. Many of these immigrants, as immigrants in the past, have proven that despite all our well-documented imperfections, the United States is, at the heart, a meritocracy. It is why people of color flood our borders. That's a highly inconvenient reality to the left. Well, she also forgets that there are some black people in America that are immigrants that are highly successful, more so than white people too. Nigerians, as a whole. So anyway,